Now I know why they say never say never. Because I thought I'd never be doing another Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith video. But here we are. And before we get started, make sure you log on to projecttransition.org, support, donate, and help these itty bitties as we educate and empower them through exclusive experiences. Okay, so I'm watching Fully Loaded, Cris Carter's new podcast, which is great. Loved it from Hello. And they bring on their first guest, which is Stephen A. Smith. Salute. And about 45 minutes into it, they go to the Max Kellerman conversation. And about 5 seconds after that, it becomes a conversation about moi. Okay. So while I'm listening to Cris Carter and Stephen A. Smith talk, all I can hear is my grandma Blackie in the background saying, baby, the truth is simple and lies are complex. So y'all tell me as we go through this interview, we had to unpack this hydration situation. Is this a simple story or a complex story? Ooh. And I'm saying this with all love because I got love for Cris Carter, got love for Stephen A. Smith, worked with both of those guys. At the same time, y'all know my energy. Y'all know what energy is. Can't be created or destroyed. Just transfer. Let's transfer some of this energy. Let go. Great interview, though.
Max Kellerman.
Yeah.
What was the rub there? Why wasn't that show as successful as other partners that you've had in that spot?
Lack of chemistry. Believe it or not, it was more his fault than mine.
Now, that's news to me. I mean, I don't know. I watched that show for 5 years, and it seemed like there were many times Stephen A. Smith was just fed up with debating Max Kellerman, fed up with being a good teammate, fed up with this fool. Like, obviously that was happening because behind closed doors, we know how it ended. So as any relationship goes, when it ends, you spend about half of that time breaking up. So it was a lot of complaining behind the scenes, obviously. But that said, that was Max's fault? Tell me if that's news to y'all. I ain't know that. Beat that up in the comments.
I've seen his friend Marcellus Wiley bring up stuff. Marcellus Wiley knows one side. He certainly never spoke to me about it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Never called, never asked, or anything like that.
Okay, that can be taken out of context. To give you context, Stephen A. Smith and I have never talked on the phone. Stephen A. Smith has never called me, and I have never called Stephen A. Smith in my life, and that's okay. We are professional associates. I got nothing but love when I see Stephen A. Smith, and when I see him again, I got nothing but love for him, and he better have the same for me. However, I don't know just one side. You got to remember, Max Kellerman has not said one word about Stephen A. Smith since he's been gone from ESPN. Since he got fired from ESPN, since he got fired from First Take, not one word. You think that's just his public persona? Nah, dog. That's who he is. He don't talk about Stephen A. Smith. We don't talk about Stephen A. Smith. I don't know just one side. I know people that worked on that show, people that worked with Stephen A. Smith then and now. I also know executives at ESPN that worked there then and now. I also, like all of y'all, watch the show. That's 3 sides right there before I even talked to Max. And Max and I finally had a conversation about Stephen A. Smith. And guess when that happened? Like last year. Way after all of this. Come on, big dog. Come on now.
And I'm not hating on him for it because that's his man. Him and Max are very, very tight. But if you want to talk about me, I'm not hard to find. Ask me.
Well, we've had hundreds of conversations.
That's
and
right.
Marcellus has had hundreds of conversations.
How about that?
So,
How about that?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And is one of the many brothers and sisters that this dude has helped out at ESPN. Because, listen, when you interview at ESPN, it might be a phone interview, video interview, it might be in person. But when you leave, guess what they do?
Yeah.
Stephen A. Bro, what you think? Hey, you know him? You know her?
Yeah.
That
all the time.
Now, that may happen all the time, but that never happened to me, brother. That never happened with me. And I don't think Cris Carter's lying, so I'm not calling Cris Carter out for this. But this is why we're really going to unpack this, because there's just too much in here. When I got to ESPN, it was 2007. Stephen A. Smith was already there, and his show just got canceled 2007, okay? He was an NBA analyst. I was an NFL analyst. We worked together for like 2 years, and y'all remember in 2009, Stephen A. Smith left. I'm still at ESPN. But in 2010, I leave, still at ESPN, from Bristol to LA to do what? Max and Marcellus and Sports Nation. So I'm in LA. Stephen A. Smith doesn't come back to 2012 to do First Take daily. Chris, he ain't helped me, bro. I didn't do those shows like that. And when I did them with Stephen A. Smith, it wasn't in the mindset that I was lower than him on the pecking order, in the hierarchy. Nah, we just did shows together, but that was it. So he didn't get the calls from the bosses, how's Marcellus doing? Nah, that was Jamie Horowitz, who you know, who we all know, right? And we were working on Sports Nation and developing it to go to Los Angeles. So I know a lot of people Stephen A. Smith hooked up in this industry. Tremendous respect for him. He is the Don Dada. He's numero uno. Salute. But I wasn't one of them that got on that ladder just to clear the air.
But I will say this. You know, I might disagree with what he says, but there have been times when I think that Marcellus has been more than fair.
Like right now.
He's entitled to his opinion. I'm certainly not here to criticize him. I only bring him up because when I think about Max Kellerman, I think about the narrative that he's helped put out there. And I'm like, talk to me, and all you had to do, because I might, there's certain things I may not say publicly, but I'd have told Marcellus, because I know that's his boy.
Right. Okay. I don't know what narrative I'm putting out there, but I know the narratives that are out there. I know the whole T.O. when he said that, hey, Max is blacker than you. Obviously, that doesn't feel good to hear, especially in front of the entire world. I also know there's a narrative that you didn't like Max, right? And I didn't put that out there. We watched the show for 5 years. Dog, you know how many times they cut that camera and Max says something funny, something silly, something stupid, something profound, whatever, and this is what we got from you. You looking at Max like this. Trust me, I've worked with so many co-hosts. Do I have to name them all? I know when I'm being sabotaged. I know when I'm being undermined. You know what chemistry looks like. And it was weird that you started this interview off saying it was Max's fault. When Max was just talking, I mean, he's smart, bright, articulate. You admit those same things. You're going to say that. At the same time, he missed. He took shots and missed. Tom Brady off a cliff, win. But when you're a teammate, your first thought is not how many shots you going to make. I get that. You're a baller. It's when you don't make the shot, I'm going to give you that rock back. Or when you don't make the shot, I'm getting that rebound and I'm going to go make this shot. Then we're going to chop it up. How are we going to do it next time? That was sabotage, what I saw. More than that. But let's keep talking. Let's go.
You know, but it was a chemistry issue. And I think that people need to understand it was mostly my fault.
Rest in peace, Grandma Blackie. What? Didn't he just say it was Max's fault? I mean, he just said it was Max's fault. And now it was mostly his fault. I'm going to try and defend Stephen A. Smith in this moment because I am fair. I'm objective, and I don't dislike Stephen A. Smith. Deep respect. Maybe he's talking about a different perspective. It was Max's fault in terms of their chemistry, but it was his fault in terms of not fixing the chemistry because he's the star of the show, the boss of the show, the dandada. Maybe he's trying to go there, right? When you're like, this player is not that good. He's the problem, but it's on me too because I'm the leader of the team. You get it? Maybe he's going to go there. I hope. If not, my grandma Blackie nailed this one. Truth is simple, baby. Lies are complex and confusing.
I'm the leader.
Okay.
I'm the executive producer of the show.
Okay, there we go.
I'm the star of the show.
I don't know still.
I wasn't looking at Max Kellerman and saying it was his fault that the show failed. I'm talking about us.
You just said that.
How I vibe with all the people that I vibe for. The proof is in the pudding. Look at how I vibed with the people that have been there since he's been gone. Look at how I vibed with Skip Bayless as a debate partner before he arrived. I think that Max Kellerman is somebody that I'm rooting for to return to this business He's somebody that is nothing short of brilliant, like
Yes.
genius level,
Yes.
brilliant. Absolutely true.
The vibe for, the people he vibes for, Skip Bayless, and Max coming after Skip Bayless, and now how everybody is doing so well on that show, and he's vibing with them and rocking with them. Here's the issue. If you look at it from this perspective, you can understand Stephen A. Smith a lot more. When he came on that show with Skip Bayless, and this is part of the reason why they don't talk anymore, that was Skip Bayless's show. Come on, Stephen A. Smith, let's do this. Your role is defined. Now on that show, all the carousel, Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky, on down, all that. This is my show. Your role is defined. But when it was with Max, here's the biggest problem. Max came on there, and Stephen A. Smith like, yo, this is your role. And Max don't play that. I told you guys in the interview before, one of the things that was asked of Max was to be the voice of white America. Nothing wrong with that. Shows are made up of dynamics all the time that they need. You know, we just watched The Facility. We need 4 players, all former NFL players. And we need 1 white guy, right? Because we got 3 black guys. You know, like they always going to find what they need. I get that. But Max Kellerman did not play the role. And that was the biggest problem. Max wouldn't play the role of the voice of white America. And Max wouldn't play the role of, oh, when it comes to racial and social issues, I'm the dummy. Or I'm the white guy who's going to sit here because I'm the liberal. And yeah, you've had that plight, Stephen A. You're right. Max had his own evidence, his own research, his own mind on those subjects. And most of the time, let's be real. And this is no diss. He out-debated Stephen A. Smith. He outshined Stephen A. Smith on those issues, especially. Because trust me, I've worked with Max. That sucker there will go there. So, I think Skip obviously was easier to work with, and you knew where you had to go. You got in where you had to fit in. And now everyone who works with you, oh, they know you the dog. You the big dog. And they better get in where they fit in.
Here's the issue for a debate show. Because you are such a genius and you are so brilliant, and you have the ability to articulate yourself the way that he does, at some point in time, you're talking and you're talking and you're talking, and you're talking above the audience to the point where they find themselves asking, what did you just say?
Did that happen? Talking above the audience means dumb it down, which is a part of the game. You know, you keep it simple, stupid. So either the audience is dumb or Max is just that damn smart, or he just didn't connect with the audience. Okay, there's ways to measure that. Let's talk to it.
Now, I might get it because I know you, and I know where you're going.
Right.
And I know how you feel because I'm working with you every day.
Right. And you dabble in a lot of different worlds.
I do.
But
and I know
you're more talking about your audience,
right.
what's going to be hot, what's going to keep building the show.
I'm on the air. When I'm on the air, Sean, Chris knows this. When I'm on the air, watch me. At times they catch me, and I don't mean for it to be caught, like a director shouldn't have me on camera. I'm talking, but then when I'm not talking, I'm directing the show. This person, that person. Wrap this up, go here, go there, keep this going. But I'm doing all of these things in the midst of the show because I know television. And so because of that, I'm watching an audience look at us for 5 years. In the last 3.5 years minimum, they were asking, what's up with this?
Okay. Different perspectives here. When he's directing the show while being on the show, he's not looking at the audience. That's just cameraman and producer. So last 3.5 or 5 years, you said the audience is like, what is this? What is up with that? So there's ways to measure that. The ratings. Ratings for First Take has always been of average 400 to 500,000. Now, there are times when you see like Shannon Sharp when he came on there, and Mondays and Tuesdays, football season, 700 up to 1 million plus. And there's all the times when you don't really pay much attention, they're going to average in the 400 or 500 range. Do you know that the ratings for when it was Skip and Stephen A. and Max and Stephen A. were basically the same? I mean, almost the same. Matter of fact, most people say they were the same. Not trying to go dive into those details. But that's one measurement. You mean the ratings are the same? Yeah, but. Uh-oh. The but is the problem. Let's talk.
and it wasn't resonating. They were watching, but it was almost like they were watching because that was a default position. And they were losing interest in my estimation. The numbers.
Caught that? Caught that? Let them finish.
Didn't show it, but the Pulse did. In terms
Watch
of our
this
numbers,
again.
in my estimation, the numbers didn't show it, but the Pulse did.
Okay. Can't. Look, Stephen A. Smith killing it for a reason. He's a genius in terms of doing television. Give him his props. That said, I can't point and say it with any matter of fact that you're losing interest if you're still viewing. I can't say that. I can't go into the mind of an audience and say, y'all not into this. There's something else going on psychologically because it's not by the numbers. You mean 500,000 people still watching? Yeah, but they're not as interested. Nah, they just forced to watch it because it's like that's just their default. Or they are watching, but they looking at you different, or they looking at y'all different, and you don't like how they looking at you, but they looking. Let's watch.
In terms of our numbers digitally, in terms of me being at games and seeing the reactions that we were getting off of the things that we said, seeing the storylines that were being peeled from content that we had discussed on the show. And 99% of it was about me. About 1% of it was about us.
And that's where I think this is deep. I think this is what really got to Stephen A. Smith. Because this happens a lot, and ESPN is known for, there was a Bristol effect. So people would work at ESPN, Scott Van Pelt, stars, Stephen A. Smith. This is when it was just strictly Bristol. And you would not know how big a star you were until you went to the Super Bowl or you went to events, and then you'd be like, oh my, people are really into it, right? Well, Stephen A. Smith obviously went to New York. So he knows how big he is because he's in New York. But when you're doing that show with Max Kellerman, and people have seen it with Skip, and y'all come off, y'all both are winning. Skip is just giving you the hot takes and crazy cowboy takes, and you over there checking them and getting it right, and people are like, yeah, way to get back at Skip, and you're right. That's all love, win-win. It wasn't that dynamic with Max. Come on, let's be real. There were times when people were like, dog, what did T.O. say? Max blacker than you. All those racial issues around that time when they were doing the show. There were times when people were like, yo, Stephen A. Smith, Max way smarter than you. So when you go to a game and you walk in, you Stephen A. Smith, and then you're talking to some people and you hear people or you're looking at people, and it's just different. Same 500,000 ratings, but they looking at you or you feeling different. As my therapist says, oh, we're going to be the star of our own story. And if you feeling a certain way, every time you look at somebody, you think they looking at you that same way that you're thinking. The pretty girl, what they staring at? Because you're pretty. The ugly girl, what they looking at? They just was saying, hi, nice outfit. It's all in your head, right? Not necessarily what's really happening.
That's not what I want. I want somebody that's going to come at it in a way where the impact is palpable enough, where it's comparable enough. And if you don't have that, then you don't have a partnership. You might have a show, but you don't have a partnership. People that are rising together. And I felt the staleness. It's our job when we're doing television to get a sense of the pulse of the audience.
Yes.
And I got the sense that the audience was losing interest.
This might be my harshest criticism. I don't know if the audience was losing interest as much as the audience wasn't as interested in Stephen A. Smith as they were before, or more so, they weren't as interested in that version of Stephen A. Smith. Max brought out a different version. Max made people look at Stephen A. Smith a different way. That's why I think the T.O. thing really hurt. That's why I think that Stephen A. Smith continues to manipulate this story instead of just saying just like it was. I ain't like the dude. Dude, smart as hell, cool, corny or whatever you think, boring, whatever it is. And ratings were great. We were killing it. I just didn't want to kill it that way. Like, it would be way more accepted and acceptable than the way he's doing it. Because if you followed it, it just keeps twisting and turning.
And so I knew it was me, but I said, it's us because it's a debate show.
So it was Max's fault at first, then it was you, and then it was you again, but then it was y'all. Got it.
I can't debate myself, and you got to be willing to step out there, take a position, et cetera, et cetera. Not to say that he wasn't at times, because clearly he was. But Skip and I had set a standard. And so the audience had an expectation, fair or unfair, that he was going to live up to that standard that Skip had set. So it really wasn't about Stephen A. It was about the Skip element and comparing that to Skip, looking for him to create that kind of fervor. And when it didn't happen, all of a sudden you felt a staleness. And I wasn't going to sit idly by and just let it continue to feel that way. I said, we got to do something. So we are not an ideal peer, what y'all want to do.
Okay. I could buy that, except, come on, y'all keep it 1,000 wow. Skip, Stephen A. set a standard. Skip left to go to Fox to get that money, got that bag. Stephen A., I remember the phone calls, calling Max. They calling Max, we need Max Kellerman. That wasn't about the standard. You knew you were getting somebody different. You don't believe me? When he went up to the bosses and said, we're not an ideal pair, what you gonna do? Y'all know what that means. That means either me or him. One of us gotta go. And I know it ain't me. So, that said, what he has now, the carousel, like all the different, Mina Khan, all of them just coming through, Dan and Ryan, Swagoo, like all that. Is that the standard of Skip? No? So you just changed the dynamic, changed the format. Interesting. Because I never thought it was about being Skip Bayless 2.0 for Max. Maybe that's what you thought. Maybe that's what's telling. You thought you were getting 2.0 Skip Bayless, not in terms of who he really was, but in terms of the role he would play. I told you, Max ain't playing that role.
And that's how that happened. And so I root for him, because obviously, listen, I got fired in 2009. That brother got morning radio, and he got an afternoon show, okay? And then obviously they had to make whatever decisions they had to make with layoffs and all of this other stuff. But this dude has been in the business working for HBO. He's worked for ESPN. He's worked for Fox. I have nothing but respect for him. He's a decent, really good dude at his core, and I'll never root against him.
Boy, I love it, bruh. I love it. When you're like, to help you sleep at night, you got somebody. You know when you snake somebody or do something crazy, you like, but look, they landed on their feet. Like, yeah, you pushed them off the building and they didn't die. And you're like, yeah, see, look, he good. He worked all them other places and he had 2 shows after I. And look, I am not caping for Max. I think it's like funny that he just can't say exactly, I'm rooting for you, but I'm going to push you off and start the domino effect of you getting up out of here. Like, it's wild.
And so I just know that if he were covering boxing and interviewed me or vice versa, we could do that. If we were doing Sports Center, we could do that. My issue was he and I together strictly for a debate show. Yeah. There's certain people, there's certain couples, pairs that just don't work as a debate team. And that's all I was trying to say.
Give me one thing about Shannon.
Okay, we got to get out of there. I might do that one too, because let's see where they go with it, man. All right, just had to unpack that, man. Gave y'all about 25 minutes of pure, uncut dope. Nothing but love for Stephen A. Smith. Continue to reign supreme as the top dog in sports media. Obviously, that interview right there, I think, was revealing in terms of the inner turmoil that Stephen A. Smith is dealing with this Max Kellerman thing. If anything has ever rubbed somebody the wrong way, it is Max Kellerman to Stephen A. Smith. It just doesn't stop. I mean, if you really have a mental recorder of watching the show, 5 years, and then all these interviews, which I don't mind. Because trust me, every time I go on an interview or podcast, they're going to ask me some of the same questions. Some things are just evergreen. You know, Shaq, they always going to talk about Kobe. You know what I mean? Rest in peace. So I'm not mad. I'm just like, how many times is this story going to change? How many times is this story going to sound crazy? How many times you going to say it's his fault, then it's your fault, right after you said it was his fault? Well, go to projecttransition.org, donate, support the itty bitties. We got to educate and empower them. And had a ball on this one. This was fun. I hope you got a good bit of support. Wow.